Welcome to another episode of Ask the Expert. I'm your host, Mildred Ingram, and today we have two special guests, super special guests. We have Mike Balzano, who is our group publisher here at BNP for R&R Magazine, and I'm going to toss it to him and let him just tell you more about himself and our other special guest.
Well, don't worry about me, but thank you, Mildred. It's always great to be here. Nice to pop in on the home team podcast every once in a while. And speaking of it, I have a guy with me. I'm so excited to have him. He has really nothing to do with the R&R industry, but he's a top contributor to one of our sister magazines, The Driller. He's an industry influencer and trainer with a passion for teaching and inspiring the next generation of construction professionals to enter the industry. And that's actually something we're going to be talking about today quite in depth. This feels like one of those, remember when CSI and Law and Order were on and they had those crossover episodes? We're bringing
this is that.
It's the hardest thing to be on the other one. And so we're bringing Brock to play with us. Please welcome one of the best people I know, actually, Mr. Brock Yorty.
Hey, thanks for having me on. And it's we got to do as much as we can to inspire this next generation to get dirty and be part of industries with purpose. And the driller with the water industry, and the restoration industry with all that happens, from our wildfires to this flooding, extreme weather. Like, those are our frontline heroes. There's a lot of purpose there, and I love it.
Absolutely.
People, R&R fans should know, or they will know more of them. We've produced something called the Ladder Award the last 4 years, and which basically means climbing the ladder. It's 35 and under, somebody who exemplifies the next leaders of our industry. And we've always been very proud of that. We're going to be giving that away at the Experience coming up September 4th through 6th in Las Vegas. Ironically, Brock's wife, Chelsea, is the associate publisher of The Driller. They'd started something with not knowing about the Ladder Award called the Emerging Driller Series. And we're right in the midst of starting that, which is kind of a cousin to that, and the same concept. Let's look at the next leaders of our industry and blow them up. On cue, the first letter we got was from a rival publisher of ours who in a very snotty way, basically said, "Why isn't this age discrimination?" Like, what are you talking about? Brock instantly called me up and said, "Can I use this for an Ask Brock?" I said, "Sure." And 10 minutes later, that video was in my possession, which means Brock just did this off the top of his head, and it was brilliant. And I'd like to post a link to that after this, but that's why we asked him here today. There's some misconceptions about that, and we got to do what we can to really blow up this next generation, Brock.
We're competing, so in the construction trades world, there's about 7.9 million Americans working today, and we see about 45% of them are going to be retired by 2030. Average age is 55 to 58.
Yeah.
What's crazy is there's 166 plus million Americans working in our workforce. So even though we're a proud industry, from water to, restoration, we're small. We're competing on trades and innovations that it took to be able to come out with a vaccine as quickly as we did for, COVID, or artificial intelligence things that are happening right now in Silicon Valley. So even though we're the boots on the ground doing some major things and restoring families' lives, in communities, like, we get overshadowed by some cool stuff going on in the tech sector.
No, for sure. I've been on a couple other podcasts this week talking about this, and I'm careful. I want to point out we need to definitely honor the legends of our industry. As I said, I have an AARP card. I don't want the veterans to go away. Don't worry, but believe me. But I'm just saying, there's a gap. There seems to be a gap in a lot of industries, and you touched on that in your video with how we lost generations in the driller industry.
So if we look at when wood shop and some of home economics and some of those classes started to get pushed out for computer labs and the internet, and now computer or like engineering labs for robotics and like 3D printing are in our community schools. So our generations, and I don't have an AARP card yet, but I am a 1980s kid, the end of X. We were outside. We see all of these memes. We see this thing about our universe was, out and about, and mom and dad didn't know how to get a hold of us or all of this, but we were muddy and we were experiencing things and we were building things and we were doing all of this crazy stuff. And we had this flip. And now if I think of my 5-year-olds, or you look at like the youngest millennials to Gen Z, they've had technology right in our face.
Yes.
You know, they've had it. They've been able to do things with it. And if you think about it, when we got through high school and internet and all this stuff was coming, it was like, let's go do a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree and learn technology. Now they have technology and they've lost this idea of it's okay to have dirty fingernails.
Mhm.
You know, that's what we need to get back to. It's not about age discrimination. It's about the fact that a lot of these great individuals that wanted to get money spent 20 years fighting the war on terror for us, you know, and we lost to Wall Street and the med industry and social media and many other ways. And we have to be a better representative now.
Yeah. And I feel like that's really a big part of bridging the gap. Like that's what that actually is, because you have to have these legends that we honor actually teaching this younger generation, you know, the way that you do things is amazing and it is where the world is going. But, you know, it is still good to know this very grassroots, get, you know, in the mud, get dirty way as well. So that as you move forward and as the older generation, you know, perishes, it makes it even stronger moving forward because you have both instead of just having the one way of doing things.
And I
What's
think
funny, Brock, I'm sorry, you can get an AARP card if you want it.
at 43,
Yes, because somebody did sue about ageism.
Right? That's
So
that's
yes, you can.
the more you know
I,
of this episode. Go ahead.
that's fantastic to know that. You know, I know a lot of great mentors that are much older than me, but I think one thing that we've stumbled on as an industry is that there was no age discrimination to mentors either. You know, we can have a new generation, that new hire that steps in, they may know coding or how to run a drone or all that. If we think of these dang kids around this iPad, and then you find out they've been doing Minecraft for 12 years. We, as the construction industry, or the restoration industry, we kind of failed that, like, we didn't come up with an app version that was restore this building, this city. This is what's happening. You know, when we were kids on the PC with Sim City, you know, you could burn down the entire city and have it rebuilt. But, you know, these kids have city planning and all of these ideas in their mind. We just need to ask them and have these great reciprocal conversations.
Yep.
I could spin back a few minutes back to the what we were speaking of before, people not wanting to get the quote unquote dirty jobs, I'll call it, because I'm going to reference Mike Rowe, who of course is championed that for a long time. And I remember, gosh, I was working for a publication in 2007, 2008. He was talking about that, and it's still a problem. And I think what hit me home is that I was a teenager in the 80s, and you'd see those commercials back then. Well, you know, look at Joe. He's going to have to go to technical school. And he's going to have to work in a factory. You don't want to be like Joe. It was hammered into us, these ads that we grew up as, yeah, I don't want that. But now, you know, in just a little time, a little training, you could be close to a 6-figure job. You know, so if you just open their mind and do it. And to your point, Brock, I mean, the veterans need to show them how. They need to get them in and keep it going. I think that, and I'll shut up in a second. I think that this industry that I'm in now, I feel is definitely a rising tide lifts all boats industry. They compete, they want to beat each other, but they're kind of, the term frenemies comes to mind a lot, you know. And this is why we could, well, if we all work together, we could grow the business and serve the business and keep it going.
The Gen Z and then millennial is like a gap, because millennials, depending on what spectrum of millennial you are, internet and all of that stuff was still new when we were coming up, and I didn't have a cell phone like that. You know, when one of my friends got one, like the coolest thing that she had was Snake. And, you know, I'm like, wow, she has a phone, you know, the what's it called? The Nokia brick or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
internet and all of that stuff was brand new. Like, so it wasn't really relied upon. It's like we still needed to kind of learn some things too, because we weren't just born into it. Whereas Gen Z is kind of born into it. And so they're way more well versed with the technology. But yeah, yeah, we need to, bridging it is important. And people just have to, as Brock said, you have to take off that cloak of, well, I know this, that way isn't the way, and actually work together to better things and get things done.
There's a couple of wonderful points you've just made. One of them is uh, if we have a group of leaders or, supervisors that are just do it this way, it's the way it needs to be. Our new generation has been able to get the answer, from somebody else at any time. So we have an opportunity to use our standard operating procedures, our ways of what have built this company and made it great to bestow on them. Or we can say, you don't need to understand why, just do. And then, you lose that piece of purpose. And to that same point, we've put this war on knowledge, on if it's webinars or if it is, oh, so you went and learned that on Google today. Well, yeah, I mean,
So,
it's as it used to be, we watched YouTubes to see how to fix what's going on with Microsoft Outlook, and now TikTok taught me, right? And
mhm.
so we have so many ways of communicating with our new hires through all of this and utilizing these tools. And sometimes we get into the industry so long that we get stuck in the mud. And somebody goes, why aren't we using a drone to evaluate? I worked for Suez North America and then Veolia North America and their water and wastewater. And
Mhm.
one of our things was restoration of water towers. And it's very dangerous from a health and safety standpoint to climb water towers. It's one of the reasons I don't do it anymore, is I
Mhm.
just don't like, it's scary. Anyway, they had a hire that goes, hey, we could be doing a lot of these evaluations with drones in a much faster time and with a lot less risk involved.
Safer.
And the company's like, we've always done it this way. Man up. You ought to be able to climb that. You don't want to climb that tower, maybe you should find a different job. And instead of looking at the value of only one individual needs to show up, log their paperwork for their drone, get on the app and go do the water tower, than having to have a tandem team. And if the company was saying, well, we just always sat one individual anyway, they weren't being safe in the first place, So we have the resources in technology for our new hires to be in the know of what's safe and what's not safe, what's proper, and who's accepting to do things differently and grow, and who wants to be stuck in the mud.
We've always done it that way. Isn't that the famous last words we've heard in business, right? For the people, all the companies that are out of business used to say that a lot, right? I think that's brilliant, Brock. That's exactly right. What steps would you take? I'm going to make you the president of all manufacturing in the United States. What I'm going to put you in the spot. I haven't asked this question. What steps would you take to make sure we could marry the generations to ensure great manufacturing continues?
So there's a lot of behavioral studies right now that say school students by fifth and sixth grade, when you now have robotics classes and all of these other STEM capabilities, camps that you can go to, are professionally developing and developing their career path well before we all thought, all right, get through your freshman and sophomore year of high school. All right, what do you want to do when you grow up? Because now we're no longer going to say a dinosaur or a fire person or
Right.
whatnot. But so it's getting in front of these individuals and showing the purpose. If the purpose is building semiconductors for green energy, if the purpose is exploration of rare earth minerals, if the purpose is, I watched my grandparents' house get impacted by Sandy hurricane, and this is what happened. Because I think that's, if I'm president, even if it's as I worked as director of wells for less than 100 people, our representation of the industry to all eyes is very important. You know, it's to be a doctor or a fireman or that type of thing. It's in the spotlight. It's almost as being a movie star. But when we jump into a trench or we show up to start rebuilding somebody's life, or rebuilding art, you know, we right then, it's no different than being in that action movie and the helicopter shows up and everybody jumps out and starts saving the day. And with this massive pandemic, we have a lot of people working from home. So now we also have a lot of children that are home and whatnot. And I think the biggest thing that I could bestow on anybody in all the trades industries right now is who's watching you. Yeah. And you have an opportunity right now to make them inspired to be part of your industry. Because if you don't, when I show up on that job site, when I leave, they're all going to be water well drillers or, you know, so we can show up and we can be in that uniform and that smile, and don't worry, we're going to take care of this. And sure, there's going to be tough days, but just understand it's much harder to show when you see ER. There's a dozen medical television shows, right?
Yes, there is.
And now we do see a lot of these shows on climate change or wildfires and that type of stuff. But what about what's happening in the background afterwards that is massively purposeful?
Yep.
Excellent point. Mildred, any final questions?
Any final questions? No, I feel like he touched on everything, and everything you said is absolutely right. I mean, go ahead.
Brock hosts, he hosts Ask Brock through the Driller. He hosts the newscast.
Yes.
Every Monday morning at 6 a.m. the newscast hits. And it was a great idea behind it, but it was Brock's idea. We're going to put something out. The Drillers tend to have a meeting at 7 a.m. every Monday for the plan of the week. We're going to put ours out at 6 a.m. with the hopes that we train them to watch our video before they have their meeting to go. And it's been great. It's been inspired. It's an inspired product and it works well. And I even though that's not a lot of R&R things involved with the Driller, I really want you to go to thedriller.com and see some of Brock stuff. It's great. And
yes, very inspiring.
Yes, indeed. I want to also, you can see Brock at the South Atlantic Jubilee with the Driller. The Driller, I should say. I'm not sure what booth we're in. I should know that. But we're going to be there in 2 weeks, which is one of our big events. There's a petting zoo there. That's all I got to say. It's an event like I've never attended.
Nothing else needs to be said.
and then we'll be back. And of course, we're going to be at the experience on September 4th through the 6th, coming up, or 6th to the 8th, excuse me, in Las Vegas. So, Brock, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking some time today. This is a topic we could talk about for a long time, but it's just important. And if we're all in the same boat, working together, we'll be fine, I think.
Yeah, we will be.
Thank you for having me. And I think the biggest piece is, as you threw that stuff out, Mike, about what I get to help out with and advocate for the industry. I have a professional career outside of producing for BMP, and anybody, it never happened unless it was written down or it was video blogged about. And that's how we become a better industry, is sharing that knowledge. And that's one of the best things is when I asked BMP if I could be interviewed for a project I was doing in Latin America. And the editor said, why don't you write it? And I go, I'm not a writer. And that was 10 years ago. Yeah. So like we build up the industry by sharing our knowledge through articles, through video interviews, through this. So that's
absolutely.
We can all do it.
We can. Thank you again, Brock, for being on the show. That's the insight and the inspiration.
I'll give you the last word, Mildred. Take us out.
Well, this has been a very different Ask the Expert, which I am into. I do not feel like it needs to be the same every time because it is all about spreading knowledge to the community. So thank you again, like I said, Brock, again, for coming on. And I hope that you guys learned something great and follow us and follow Brock.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.